Megalithic constructions are a very important part of humanity's enigmatic past. And despite the distances that separate the monuments around the world, there are incredible connections that no one can explain. In the area bathed by the Mediterranean Sea, we find sufficient evidence of a civilization that we know nothing about but which erected extraordinary buildings from colossal stone blocks. One of the most important settlements of this type is found on the island of Menorca. We have traveled there to witness the magnitude of its megaliths and the mysteries that these immense constructions, which dot the Menorcan landscape. One of the main and most abundant constructions on the island is the so-called talayot, a term that means watchtower, because it has been considered just that, a watchtower or defensive structure, although, as we will see later, that was not its function at any point. More than 300 talayots have been counted on the island. Most of them have a conical shape with a circular base ranging from 8 to 17 meters in diameter. But there is another type of talayot, more ceremonial, with a square base of stricter measurements, close to 10 meters, whose walls are oriented towards the solstices or their lunar equivalents. All the talayots have been constructed from large stones fitted together without any type of mortar or cement, forming a mound of rocks with several layers of stones that sometimes include an interior chamber and an entrance at their base. Others, however, are solid with a room at their highest point. In the talayotic settlement of Torre den Galms, one of the largest and most important in the Balearic Islands, you can see 3 circular talayots, located at the highest point of the village, a perfect place for surveillance functions. But why build 3 towers and triple the effort when 1 tower is enough for surveillance? It is worth highlighting the incredible connection that exists between the talayots of Menorca and the so-called Neurig of the neighboring island of Sardinia, or with the well-known Torri of southern Corsica, which are only a few hundred kilometers apart by sea. No one has found an explanation for the constructions of the mysterious Neurigs of Sardinia. Around 8,000 have been discovered spread across the island, although it is believed that in the past there could have been up to 30,000, which is quite strange. For this reason, it makes no sense to claim that these constructions were made for surveillance or defense. It is true that the talayots are more rudimentary constructions and do not reach the level of sophistication of the Neurigs of Sardinia, but there is a great similarity between them. So it is not surprising that there was an ancient common culture between these 2 islands in the past. Among the elements of the talayotic culture of Menorca, the figure known as tala stands out, which means table in Catalan. It is a construction element that has the shape of a T, consisting of a large vertical stone block on which another block rests in a horizontal position. And unlike what happens with the talayots, only 1 tala enclosure appears per settlement. The tala enclosure is a building constructed using the Cyclopean technique. The perimeter wall is double, and on its inner face, there are attached pillars made of gigantic stones, as can be seen in the tala enclosure of Torre den Galms, whose central element, the tala, is dismantled and the fitting they made in the horizontal stone to set it on the vertical can be appreciated. The archaeological excavations carried out in the tala enclosures have revealed some interesting figurines, such as the bronze statuette of Imhotep, a famous architect and high priest of ancient Egypt, found in Torre den Galms, or the bull of Turalba. The tala, due to its shape, is also linked to the bull as it resembles a head with horns. This opens up many hypotheses, but focusing on the figure of the bull, it means that this type of cult to the symbol of the bull had reached ancient Menorca through the Mediterranean. And as we know, the bull represents Baal, one of the most revered and dark entities of antiquity. But this is not the only theory. The most supported one is that the tala served as an astronomical calendar. In the tala of Trapuco, a place near Mahon, the capital of the island, one can see on the surface of the vertical slab some grooves carved into the rock that are arranged equidistantly from each other, and whose total sum is 29 lines. According to the geologist Gonzalo Calvo Perez, they represent the lunar month of 28 to 29 days in duration. It should be noted that the lines are inclined, forming an angle of 40 degrees that corresponds to that of the ecliptic to the west on the day of the equinox, according to the latitude of Mahon. Moreover, a perfect star map is observed, constituted by the constellations represented by the black dots seen on the surface of the rock, and they would correspond to Orion and Taurus, two very important constellations in antiquity. Again, the similarities with Sardinia and its devotion to the bull are exposed, recalling the well-known Tombs Dei Giganti, or giant tombs, in the shape of a bull's head, which were oriented towards Aldebaran, the brightest star in the constellation of Taurus. We cannot fail to point out another great similarity between the Talas, or the Taliatic settlements, with other elements of antiquity. In this case, we refer to the archaeological site of Göbekli Tepe. Considered the oldest temple in the world, according to official dating, it is at least 12,000 years old, breaking all records established by history and revealing a completely unknown past. Although there are still many enigmas surrounding the Turkish monument, Göbekli Tepe stands out for its T-shaped pillars, a style very similar to that of the Talas of Menorca. Even when comparing the sites of both places, so distant from each other, they share a tremendous relationship. Both have pillars placed in the inner ring, achieving a great architectural resemblance. The most surprising thing is that both the Taliatic settlements of Menorca and the enclosures of Göbekli Tepe are not only separated by long distances but also by 10,000 years of age. And even more incredible is that 3,000 years after the construction of Göbekli Tepe, this immense complex was deliberately buried to preserve the monument and the information that its designers had imprinted in it. The Taliatic culture of Menorca was officially not influenced by Göbekli Tepe, unless the official dating of the Menorcan settlements was incorrect, and these places coincided in the same period, and it could even be that the Taliatic sites were built before the constructions of Göbekli Tepe, which, according to some theories, also creates a star map and holds information about the most catastrophic event the Earth has experienced in the last 20,000 years. The Great Worldwide Flood. We cannot overlook the theory that argues the true purpose of these special places in Menorca was related to energies that we do not see and do not yet understand. Perhaps the Talas were places of connection with more subtle worlds, or even a way to capture infinite energy from the ether. Perhaps that would explain how they were able to move those heavy stones and place them in the correct locations. There is no doubt that the builders of the megalithic structures in Menorca, along with those of Göbekli Tepe or Sardinia, possessed knowledge that we still cannot comprehend. We can only say that thousands of years ago, an unknown and enigmatic civilization inhabited Menorca, and its mysterious remains make us realize that we know nothing about the history of our past. As we saw in another video, the island of Menorca, in Spain, is full of archaeological remains that cause admiration in all those who see them and feel the history in their stones. Experts say that these constructions are no more than 3,500 years old. However, it is impossible to know for sure, as the stones cannot be dated. Therefore, their age was determined by dating the objects found in the excavations, which, of course, could have been placed there thousands of years after their construction. So, the truth is that there is no way to know when these stone constructions were built. And it should also be added that it is completely unknown why and for what purpose they were made. Something very important to consider is the tremendous connection between the archaeological remains of Menorca and those found in Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, and those on the island of Sardinia, Italy. Regarding who their builders were, it should be noted that the ancient Menorcans attributed the construction of these monuments to giants. Curiously, the same happens with the sister constructions on the island of Sardinia. Their ancient inhabitants also believed that the authors of those Cyclopean works were giants. Coincidence? The priest, physician, geographer and astronomer and first chronicler of the Kingdom of Majorca, Juan Binamelis Garcia, in his work Nueva Historia de la Isla de Mallorca y de otras islas a ella adyacentes, written in the late 16th century, refers to the first population that settled in the Balearic Islands, whom he considered to be Chaldean people who came down from the Caspian Mountains and crossed from Africa in the company of Tubal. And, according to the writings of the Bible, Tubal was the son of Japheth, brother of Meshech, and one of the 16 grandchildren of Noah. There is a reference in the Old Testament where it mentions that the Amorites were giants. In Numbers 13:28-33 it says, "But the people who live there are powerful, their cities are enormous and fortified." Caleb said, "Let's go up and conquer that land." But those who had gone up with him answered, "We will not be able to fight against those people. They are stronger than us. The land we explored devours its inhabitants, and the men we saw there are enormous." 33 We even saw the giants of Anak. Compared to them, we looked like grasshoppers, and that's how they saw us. Genesis 10 verses 15-16, 14-13. It is mentioned that Sidon is the son of Canaan and the grandson of Noah, who are the ancestors of the Amorites, among others. That is to say, they came from the lineage of Noah's giants. Tubal, the grandson of Noah, is credited with the first settlement of the Balearic Islands, the same one who, according to various traditions, is considered the first to take possession of the Iberian Peninsula and its settlement. These individuals are seen as giants and are attributed with the construction of the megaliths of Menorca, and coincidentally, this assertion is supported by local toponyms such as Es Clapper de Gegant, which means of the giants, Sa Punta de Gegant, also of the giants. There are many more, and most of them are connected with prehistoric settlements. This line of thought persisted even into the 20th century, in conservative and traditionalist authors like José Roland Mir, who traced the origin of all the populations of the earth back to Noah and his descendants. It is also not surprising that in the oral traditions of the peoples living near megalithic stone monuments, they attribute their authorship to giants, because they could not find a logical explanation for such monumental works. We find very similar legends in many places around the world. Of course, we cannot rule out that perhaps in the past they were erected by giants, but this is something we do not know. Therefore, the origins of the Cyclopean monuments in Menorca are truly confusing. Both the taliots and the talas stand out for the use of large and heavy stones that have been placed in very precise locations. However, these are not the only ones that have been associated with giants. There is a Cyclopean construction known as Navita. On the island, there are many and of different types, but none as special as the Navita des Tudons. La Navita des Tudons is a building made from large stone blocks arranged in horizontal rows, one next to the other, without any type of mortar. Some of the heaviest blocks occupy the lower part of the structure, while the rest are made up of different sizes of carved limestone blocks. It has exterior dimensions reaching up to 14.5 meters in length and 6.5 meters in width, measurements that decrease as one ascends, reaching 4.55 meters in height. Although it is believed that, originally, it could have reached up to 6 meters, completely closing the structure, giving it that inverted ship appearance from which this type of building gets its name. The Navita was built on a limestone platform and is oriented southwest-northeast/northwest-southeast, with the entrance to the monument positioned to the southwest, which is very small, only 57 by 75 centimeters, and apparently it could be sealed with a vertical slab. Inside, a corridor opens up leading to the main chamber, which measures 7.45 by 2.45 m, and just above it is the upper chamber, measuring 7.10 m in length and 1.90 m in width. Both chambers have ceilings made from very well-crafted Cyclopean stones embedded in the walls. It is not known what the function of this building was. Officially, it is considered a collective funerary monument due to the discovery of remains of more than 100 individuals, whose bodies were in complete disarray, without knowing if they belonged to the same family or clan. Personal belongings accompanying the deceased were also found alongside the bodies. This was the use given to it during the first millennium before Christ, although it could also be that its construction was earlier and its purpose very different, but the truth is that it is totally unknown. However, La Navita de Tudons is linked to the giants through a popular legend that has been passed down from generation to generation. It tells that in very ancient times, two giants vied for the love of a woman who was indecisive in choosing between the two of them. Then the giants challenged each other, and each had to undertake a task that required strength and skill. One had to build a boat with large, well-carved stone blocks, and the other had to dig a deep well with the strength of his arms until water gushed forth. One day, loaded with the last stone on his shoulder, the giant of the shuttle passed by the well to inform his adversary and thus declare himself the victor. But from the depths of the hole, the other giant shouted, "It doesn't matter if you finish it, because I've just found water. I have won." Seeing himself as the loser, the shuttle giant, filled with rage, lifted the great rock he was carrying and threw it into the depths of the well, finishing off his rival. But upon realizing what he had done, he disappeared in shame. The legend says that, for that reason, a rock is missing from the southwest facade of the Navita de Tudons. It is surprising the number of popular legends that refer to giants on the island of Menorca and that have an incredible connection with the Cyclopean monuments. There is no way to know if their origins were as extraordinary as they say, but there is no doubt that this island still holds many secrets waiting to be revealed.